Yeah,
Oh,
me too.
that was tough.
I was like, what is
Like, what
For the
word are you
second
trying to
one?
look for? I was like, I.
Rude fits so perfectly.
That's what
So
I was
I
about
put
to write.
rude.
Okay.
And then I ended up your answer.
Oh,
I was
okay.
about to write rude, and then I ended up saying not open mind, unopen-minded or something like that.
Okay. Okay. All right.
But you can't be wrong with rude.
That is
rude.
rude.
It is rude.
Well, um, nope.
Oh, by the way, like when you're about to like stream, your thumbnail is still like social justice. So sometimes it's confusing. I'm like, wait, is this
Oh.
social justice class or is it anthro?
Like for this one,
Like in YouTube.
I did it a couple times with the social just. Then I fixed it, so I think it's okay now. I just yeah, I forgot to change my thumbnail. Okay, so are we ready? Okay, so yeah, oh yeah, you should probably get that from me. So last class, when was that? Tuesday. Oh, you're still going? Okay. I won't give anything away. Okay. Last class, we just started our, well, I guess technically it's the third unit, so the beginnings of human culture, right? And we said that the point of this is to figure out if culture is so important to human beings, then where does it come from, right? How does culture how did culture evolve? How did we kind of create this thing that no other animal has? And kind of maybe more interesting, maybe not, but maybe, is how it's actually shaped us. Okay, so there's kind of two things going on here. I showed you a very short video Tuesday. Showed you a very short video on Tuesday just to talk a little bit about the process of evolution, right? Because that's an important thing, right? The idea of how living things change over time is important to understand because, of course, we didn't start out this way, right? We've become this way over millions of years, right? And so millions of years of change has led to the way us creatures are right now, right? And so our ancestors and the ancestors of all living things have gone through a process of natural selection, right? And so we said that the environment kind of chooses which organisms or which versions of organisms are the best ones, right? The ones that are the best and the ones that are most capable of getting food, most capable of sheltering themselves from the environment, most capable of avoiding predators and toxins and viruses and things. Those are the ones that are going to pass their genes on to the next generation, right? They're going to live long enough to reproduce. And so really what's getting passed on here is genetics, but also adaptive traits, right? So these are characteristics about an organism that kind of function, like that had the whew, been a long week. Adaptive traits are characteristics of an organism that have a certain function, right? They allow this creature to do something, right? And so our hands are certainly an adaptive trait, right? Our bipedal body, right? The way that we walk on 2 feet is an adaptive trait. The way we, process fats and proteins is an adaptive trait, right? So all the sort of parts of our body and how they work are adaptive traits. We said a species, this is important, a species is a group of animals that can interbreed and that can have fertile offspring, right? That's important. If animals can't interbreed with each other or if they can't have fertile offspring, they're not a species, right? And we'll be talking about species quite a bit for the next week or so. We said that each individual member of a species is genetically unique, no matter how similar they might look to you. They are all unique and special. And they kind of gain their specialness through DNA, right? So they, unless you're looking at an asexually reproduced organism, mammals, for instance, contribute some DNA from the mother, some DNA from the father. Those genes get reshuffled and then combined, right? So each organism is a brand new, unique version, right? Something, yeah.
I might sound dumb. But
Nope.
Can an animal be asexual?
Can an animal be asexual?
Yeah. Like
Define
elephant.
asexual.
Because how nowadays a lot of people are just they just don't like sex. Like some of them.
Ah.
They just don't like at all. Can an elephant or I don't know, another mammal be like that?
Okay, we'll go there. So the question is, can an animal be asexual? So nowadays we have people who they define themselves as asexual because they're just not really interested in sexual intercourse or sexual relationships. They define themselves as asexual. Can an animal be that? I assume it could. I don't know that anyone has ever studied that. I mean, if you want to go on and do a PhD on it, it might be.
Thank you.
It might be the first question of its kind. But I mean, if an animal were like that, if an animal were asexual, would it be likely to pass on its genes to the next generation? Would it be likely to reproduce? Less likely, right? Some other animal could come and overpower it, right? Humans might call it rape, but in the animal world, it's just sexual intercourse, right? But that could happen. But that animal would probably be less likely to pass on its genes to the next generation. So I guess the answer is I don't know. It's an interesting question, but possibly. Right, so we have these kind of reshuffling of genes that combine. They create brand new, unique organisms every time. And those organisms are kind of tested by the environment, by all these things, to see how fit they are, right? And the ones that are most fit and most successful, they either get to reproduce or they reproduce the most, and hopefully they pass on those beneficial traits to their offspring, right? Which is pretty interesting, because if you think about it, how cool are all of us in that we are made up of genes that have survived that selection process, right? We've been living in an environment, so we'll get to this, but our species, Homo sapiens, has been around for, the current estimate is probably 300 to 350,000 years, okay? And for that entire period, our ancestors were selected to all of these pressures. And our genes are the ones that made it through, right? Ours are the ones that are successful, right? So we have, the best combination of genes over the past 300,000 years, right? We have the best of the best, which is I think that's pretty impressive, actually, that we have gotten the best, because the ones that weren't the best were selected out, right? Those individuals didn't reproduce. Their lines are their family lines have disappeared and are dead, and they've passed on some of the best stuff to us. Now, we said, of course, that organisms always produce more offspring than they need, unless you're humans nowadays, in which we kind of don't, right? We choose how many kids we want now. And so that brings us to our little documentary here. Again, I said it was a book that Neil Shubin wrote. Neil is a paleontologist, so someone who studies ancient life, and an evolutionary biologist. And so he wrote this book. They turned it into a documentary series with I think 4 parts, but we'll just watch. I think this is maybe it's in 3 parts. This is the third part of 3. Okay, and again, in it, he's going to explain to us how we came to be the animals that we are, or he'll explain some things anyway, not everything. Now, to kind of keep track of the important pieces of this documentary, I made you these little questions to kind of take notes and answer as we go. Okay, I'll give this to you, but I'm not sure would you prefer this on paper, or would you prefer me to just like put it in Moodle so you can use your computer? Or should I do both? Both? Okay. Next time I'll try to upload it to Moodle while we're actually I can't do it while we're watching, but I'll try to upload it to Moodle, and next time going forward I'll have paper copies and Moodle copies. Okay? But I'll hand this out to you just for this time. And then next time we'll be a little more organized. Two. So, this, oh, you got an extra one? Oh, sorry. Thank you. This will help us keep track of the important points, okay? And again, we'll talk about them as we go through this documentary, okay? So, if you are online, where's my, hang on. This one. Okay. Oh, yeah, there we go. If you're online, the video can be found here. I just put that in the live chat. It can be found there. Let's see, where are we? Let's watch we're gonna watch 25 minutes, okay? We'll watch 25 minutes, then we'll stop it, and we'll try to answer some of these questions and talk about what we've seen, okay? All right, any questions before we jump in? Okay. I'm just gonna nerd out for a second and just say that I think this is really cool and really interesting, but I just thought I'd say that. Okay, so let's watch 25 minutes and see how it goes, okay? first part has to do with our hands, right? And Neil Shubin takes us through kind of the evolution of that hand. And so, what is so special about primate hands?
They are very similar to our hands.
They're very similar to our hand. That is true.
They help us grasp things.
And they're what?
Nails and the grip of their palm.
Right. So we have nails instead of claws. Well, most of us anyway. And Sabrina, what did you say?
They help us. They like help to grasp things like nuts or whatever.
Yeah, we have a thumb that can oppose the rest of our fingers, right? Which is a strange thing, right? Not many animals can do that, right? If you look at a dog or a cat, you'll see that actually they just have a little claw here, right? They don't really have a thumb at all, right? But we do have one. It diverges from our other toes, and it can swivel around, right? And that's a huge advantage. And so, what can this hand do then? Yeah,
To the edge of the branches.
yeah, it can grasp things, small things, and it can go to the edge of the branches. What'd you say back there?
Moving around the branches.
Yeah, moving around the branches, right? And so Neil Shubin makes the point that, if you've seen a cat climb a tree, for instance, they're incredible, right? Really fast, sharp claws, they can climb just about anything, right? But once they get out on a branch, they can't really hold on, right? They can walk, they can balance, but there's a point where they just can't go out any further, right? Because they can't hold on. But primate can, right? A primate can go, especially those little squirrel monkeys. Aren't they cute? I thought they were cute. They go all the way out. Some of us have had bad experiences with monkeys, maybe, so. But they can go all the way out to the edge of the branches, and what's there?
Fruit.
Yeah, fruit,
Insects.
insects, flowers, right? A food source. And this is important, and it's important because think about this as an evolutionary advantage, right? This primate, these little primates with their little hands, now they can get out and access a food source that's very difficult for others to get to, right? Animals with paws like cats, they can't get out there, right? Birds can kind of get out there, right? Some birds, if they're big enough to get out and hold on, but no other kind of primates can do it, right? And so these animals can access a food source that others are denied, right? And that's important, right? That's an advantage. That's going to allow them to survive better, right? They have access to more food. Those who survive can pass on their genes and reproduce, right? And so this becomes a successful innovation. It becomes a successful adaptive trait, right? And again, it's something that we've inherited, right? Those hands don't look very different from our own, right? Ours are a little less hairy, or maybe a little more hairy, depending on who it is. And we can grasp things in the same kind of way, right? There's something else I wanted to say about the hands. What else did I want to say about the hands? Oh, right. And it's something else that I think is really interesting too, is that this kind of having a limb that ends in 5 things is a very common thing to find in the animal world, right? And if you look at other mammals, for instance, you'll see that all of them have some remnant of this 5, we call them rays in sort of anatomy, these 5 rays, right? So if you look at a whale, for instance, if you look inside their flipper, you'll see there's 5 rays of bones inside those flippers. Right? If you look at a bat wing, you'll see the remains of 5 fingers. Right? If you look at primates, if you look at cats or dogs, they have 4 toes, and then they have kind of the remnant of this one up here, right? But you see it over and over again, this sort of limb that ends in 5 things, whatever they are, toes, fingers, whatever. And then they've kind of been reshaped and adapted, right? Sometimes they're flippers, sometimes they're wings, sometimes they're hands that can grasp, sometimes they're paws, right? But the same kind of basic plan is changed and elaborated and modified. Right?
How
And
about
so,
people with like extra fingers?
genetic mutation. If you have an extra finger, it's kind of a, yeah, genetic error. There's cats with extra toes too. Apparently they're good luck if you have a cat with a sixth toe. Have you seen them?
Yeah, I have, but I don't have one.
No. Polydactyl cats.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, polydactyl cats have a sixth, well, I guess a fifth toe. Yeah, so very, very interesting thing, but something that goes back 50 million years, right? You go back to that creature, Natharctus tenebrosus. It has a hand that looks awful lot like us, right? And we've inherited that hand from 50, this is a 50 million year old hand, right? Give or take. He also talks about the acquisition of color vision, right? And that's an interesting thing too, because it's reasonably unique to humans, right? There's not really many animals that can see in the spectrum that we can, right? And how does Neil describe the acquisition of this ability?
It helps spot like ripe fruits for animals with like.
Okay, that's the benefit, right? It helps spot ripe fruits. Why would an animal want to spot fruits that are ripe?
Survival.
Survival? What's that? To drink the fruit, yeah. What's so special about a ripe fruit? It's sweet?
Good for them.
It's good for them? What else?
They can differentiate it with like other not delicious foods.
What's kind of happening when a fruit ripens is that its kind of internal structure is converting, right? So if you have a really green banana, right? Really green bananas have less carbs and less sugar, but they have more soluble fiber, right? So eating a green banana, actually if you need fiber, green bananas are really good for you. They're kind of hard to eat, at least for me. I don't really enjoy them. But they've got lots of fiber, less sugar, less carbs. But as the banana ripens, those things convert to sugars, right? So a really ripe banana is way sweeter, it has less fiber, but it's kind of more tasty, right? So imagine now an animal that can look and from a distance can find the most ripe fruits, right? It's going to eat those fruits and it's going to get more energy it's going to get more nutrients for its energy, right? It's not going to have to go around and sniff everything or just eat whatever it finds. Suddenly it can pinpoint exactly the foods with the most calories, right? The most nutrients. Is that going to help it survive? Yeah, right? So again, this is a very useful adaptation, and it's one that, again, most animals don't have. How did we evolve this really interesting ability?
Through DNA change.
Right. We have a DNA change, right? So there's these little proteins in the back of our eye. They detect wavelengths of light, and we have a copying error and a mutation, right? And so that gives some animals the ability to see these new colors, and again, it's beneficial for us. What's so interesting about that test with the monkeys? Well, maybe nothing's interesting, but I think it's interesting. What does Jay Knights, what does he do in his experiment? What does he do? Yeah, he gives that monkey the third opposite, right? And so his question is, because Neil Shubin kind of shows us, his question is, well, yes, your eyes need to be able to detect that wavelength of light, but then your brain has to do something with it, right? It has to process that information so that you can actually see those colors. And so Jay is saying, if I turn that opsin on, will the brain know what to do with this new information, or will it take a while to figure it out?
The brain is ready for it. It just needs an extra option.
Yeah, and Jay says, amazingly, somehow, the brain is ready for it, right? Somehow he flipped that opsin on, and suddenly the monkey knows that's red. Well, maybe he doesn't know it's red, but he knows how to see it, right? Which is incredible, right? Imagine, what do you have to do sometimes when you have a computer and you get a new printer, and you have to download a driver, right? You gotta find the right one, or you gotta insert some sort of program. You have to teach the computer how to use this new piece of hardware, right? You plug it in, the computer's got to figure out, okay, what is it? Is it a printer? Is it a camera? What is it? How do I interact with it? How do I deal with it? We have to teach computers how to do with it. But here, basically what Jay Knights did was he plugged in a new piece of hardware, and the computer already knew how to do it, right? That monkey Sam had never seen the color red before. None of his ancestors for millions of years had seen the color red, and immediately he knew what it was. He could see it, right? How that works? Well, I don't know, maybe Jay has figured out something since then, but that's a really interesting thing, right? That the brain is just able to suddenly use this information and know what to do with it. Whereas again, a lot of computers, you plug in a printer, the computer doesn't know where the printer is, it's searching for it, you try to print something, nothing happens. Right? It takes a while to teach the computer how to use the new device, use the new hardware, right? But here, somehow the brain already knows, right? Very interesting. Okay, good so far? Good so far? Okay, let's watch just a few more minutes. We'll meet Lucy, and then I'll let you go, okay? Lucy's a very interesting character. We'll also meet, by the way, the guy he's going to go meet here is Don Johansson. Don Johansson is a huge deal in paleoanthropology. He's a rock star, okay? But let's have a look here.